Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to a world of laughter, learning, and entertainment. Welcome, everyone, to our latest video where we'll be exploring Egyptian Islamic Jihad. The Egyptian Islamic Jihad EIJ, formerly called simply Islamic Jihad and the Liberation Army for Holy Sites, originally referred to as al-Jihad, and then the Jihad Group, or the Jihad Organization, is an Egyptian Islamist group active since the late Urs. It is under worldwide embargo by the United Nations as an affiliate of Al-Qaeda. It is also banned by several individual governments worldwide. The group is a prescribed terrorist group organization in the United Kingdom under the Terrorism Act 2000. The organization's original primary goal was to overthrow the Egyptian government and replace it with an Islamic state. Later it broadened its aims to include attacking American and Israeli interests in Egypt and abroad. Since September 1998, the leadership of the group has also allied itself to the global jihad ideology expounded by Osama Bin Laden and has also threatened Western interests. In June 2001, Al-Qaeda and the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, which had been associated with each other for many years, merged into Qaeda al-Jihad. However, the UN states that there was a split in the organization when the merger was announced. Following the Egyptian Revolution of 2011, former leaders of the group in Egypt formed a political party called the Islamic Party, which became a member of the Anti-Coup Alliance following the 2013 Egyptian coup d'etat. Now, let's shift our perspective and explore history from a different angle. Al-Jihad or Tanzim al-Jihad was formed in 1980 from the merger of two clusters of Islamist groups, a Cairo branch under Mohammed Abdul Salam Farid and a Saudi Upper Egypt branch under Karam Zudi. Farid wrote the 1980 book Al-Farida al-Ghaiba, The Neglected Obligation, setting forth the standards for EIJ, of which 500 copies were printed. After the assassination of Egyptian President Anwar Sadat, the Egyptian government succeeded in rounding up the membership of Tanzim al-Jihad, but was rather lenient in the ensuing trial. In prison, the Kayans and Sadis reverted into two factions, the Cairo militants later becoming the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, and the Sadis later forming the Al-Ghamaz al-Islamiyah, or the Islamic group. According to Zawahiri, the EIJ was different from the Takfir wal-Hijra group, as we do not consider people infidels because of their sins. And we are different from the Muslim Brotherhood because sometimes they do not oppose the government. The leader of the Cairo militants was Abad al-Zuma, a one-time army intelligence officer serving a life sentence for his part in the plot to kill Sadat. This faction, the Islamic Jihad, was small and tightly disciplined. Most of the middle-rank members were discharged from prison after only 3 years and fled to Pakistan and Afghanistan to help the Mujahideen there and escape persecution at home. With the foundation laid, let's embark on a journey into Pakistan and Afghanistan. In the mid-Urs, in Peshawar, Pakistan, the militants reconstituted themselves as the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, with very loose ties to their nominal imprisoned leader, Abad al-Zuma. A physician by the name of Sayyid Imam al-Sharif or Dr. Fol was head of EIJ for some time, although eventually, Ayman al-Zawahiri, whose leadership style was autocratic, would take over. During this time EIJ became more extreme, with, for example, Dr. Fol emphasizing the importance of takfir and execution of apostates, which he argued should include those who registered to vote, since this was a violation of God's sovereignty over governance. It was also at this time that some saw the Egyptians of the EIJ begin to exert an influence on Osama Bin Laden, who at the time was known as a wealthy and well-connected fundraiser for the jihad in Afghanistan. Egyptian filmmaker Issam Duraz, Bin Laden's first biographer, met Bin Laden in the Lion's Den training camp in Afghanistan and complained that the Egyptians formed a barrier around Bin Laden, and whenever he tried to speak confidentially to Bin Laden, the Egyptians would surround the Saudi and drag him into another room. One of those who complained of being elbowed aside was a former mentor of Bin Laden, Abdullah Assam, the original exponent and organizer of global jihad on behalf of the Afghan Mujahideen. In 1991, EIJ broke with al-Zuma and al-Zawahiri took control of the leadership. At this point, Mark Sigman, a former Foreign Service officer who was based in Islamabad from 1987 to 1989, says the EIJ became a free-floating network without any real ties to its original society or to its surrounding society. Prepare yourself for an eye-opening discussion on Sudan in the upcoming portion of this video. Al-Jihad EIJ had a blind cell structure, meaning members in one group did not know the identities or activities of those in another, so that if one member were captured they would not be able to endanger the whole organization. However, Egyptian authorities captured the membership director of EIJ, the one member who had all the other members' names. The database in his computer listed every member's address, aliases, and potential hideouts. Al-Jihad leader al-Zawahiri bitterly lamented the government newspaper's elation over the arrest of 800 members of the al-Jihad group without a single shot being fired. In August 1993, al-Jihad unsuccessfully attempted to kill the Egyptian Interior Minister, Hassan al-Alfi, who was leading a crackdown on Islamic militants. A bomb-laden motorcycle exploded next to the minister's car, fatally wounding Nazi Nashi Rasht and killing Tariq Abdel-Nobi Dia al-Din instantly. The attack marked the first time Sunni Islamists had made use of suicide in terrorism, a technique made famous by Shia Hezbollah in Lebanon. It is likely that the notion of suicide bombing was inspired by Hezbollah, as al-Zawahiri had been to Iran to raise money, and had sent his underling Ali Mohammed, among others, to Lebanon to train with Hezbollah. A few months later, in November, al-Jihad made another bombing attempt, this time to kill Egypt's Prime Minister, Sidki. The car bomb exploded close to a girls' school in Cairo as the minister was driven past. The minister, protected by his armored car, was not hurt, but the explosion injured 21 people and killed a young schoolgirl, Shema Abdel Halim. Unfortunately for al-Jihad, this bombing was preceded by 2 years of terror by a larger terror group, al-Ghamas al-Islamiyya, that had killed 240, and the patience of the Egyptian public had run short. Little Shema's death captured people's emotions as nothing else had, and when her coffin was borne through the streets of Cairo, people cried, "Terrorism is the enemy of God." A harsh police crackdown followed, and 280 EIJ members were arrested, with 6 eventually given a death sentence. IS's long-time association with Al-Qaeda became closer at this time, when most of its members were reported to have gone on the Al-Qaeda payroll. The leader of EIJ hoped this would be a temporary measure, but later confided to one of his chief assistants that joining with Bin Laden had been the only solution to keeping the jihad organization abroad alive. In the upcoming section, we'll be shining a light on Mubarak's assassination attempt. In June 1995, another failed assassination attempt caused yet a greater setback. Operating from its exile base in Sudan, EIJ joined forces with the Egyptian Al-Ghamas al-Islamiyya and Sudanese intelligence in an attempt to kill Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak while he was in Ethiopia for a conference of the Organization of African Unity. Sayyid Imam al-Sharif has claimed that Zawahiri was an agent for Sudanese intelligence services. The leader of the plot was Mustafa Hamza, a senior Egyptian member of the Al-Qaeda and commander to the military branch of the Islamic group. The plotters had been planning the attack for more than a year and even married local women in Ethiopia. They received assistance from Sudanese intelligence services, which smuggled weapons into their embassy in Ethiopia. Their hope was to decapitate the Egyptian government, thereby eliminating the iron grip of the state security services and creating a power vacuum which Islamists could then fill. Unfortunately for this plan, the attack was foiled by a malfunctioning grenade launcher and Mubarak's bulletproof limousine. As we enter this new phase, let's uncover the impact of expulsion from Sudan on our broader topic. Expulsion from Sudan. Back in Egypt, Mubarak launched a ruthless campaign to crush anyone involved in Islamist terrorism, but in Sudan the EIJ had even worse troubles. In 1994, in a pamphlet written by al-Zawahiri, he alleges that Ahmad Salama Mubarak's 17-year-old son Musab, as well as the 15-year-old son Ahmed of Mohammed Sharaf, were captured by the Egyptian General Intelligence Directorate and sexually abused. They were blackmailed with videotape of the sodomy until they agreed to act as informants against their father's group. Musab went through his father's files and photocopied them for the Egyptians, but the Sudanese intelligence service saw the covert meetings and alerted al-Jihad, recommending that they treat the boys leniently if they confessed. Al-Zawahiri convened a Sharia court, where Musab confessed he had been given explosives by the Egyptians which he was told to detonate at the next Shura Council meeting. They were each found guilty of sodomy, treason, and attempted murder, and sentenced to death by firing squad. The trial and the execution were filmed and copies of the film were distributed by al-Jihad. When the Sudanese found out about the executions in its jurisdiction, al-Zawahiri and the rest of EIJ were ordered to leave the Sudan. It was a devastating blow to the group. In Zawahiri's hands, al-Jihad had splintered into angry and homeless gangs. Bin Laden was also weakened by this failed operation. The core of his Al-Qaeda group was made up of members of Islamic Jihad. Because of Sudan's collaboration in the plot, the United Nations voted to impose sanction on the country. To rehabilitate itself in the international community, the Sudanese government pressured Bin Laden to leave the country. Bin Laden and many EIJ returned to war-torn Afghanistan, having lost many members and almost all of Bin Laden's assets. On November 19, 1995, EIJ bombed the Egyptian embassy in Islamabad, killing 16 and wounding 60. The attack served as a prototype for future attacks by its sister organization Al-Qaeda, such as the 1998 bombings of American embassies in Africa. Moving ahead, let's uncover the hidden gems within Albania and discover their significance. According to journalist Lawrence Wright, based on testimony given at the trial of the Albanian cell members in the late ERS or early ERS, EIJ membership had dwindled to 40 members outside Egypt, and none at all inside the country where the movement had been eradicated. In 1998, 3 al-Jihad members were arrested in Albania, and the United States intervened to ensure they were extradited to Egypt to face charges. In Afghanistan, Zawahiri wrote the 1998 fatwa for the International Islamic Front for Jihad against Jews and Crusaders, calling for the killing of Americans and their allies, both civilian and military, which was signed by representatives of several jihadi organizations, including EIJ. In August 1998, Isam Abdel Taub was extradited to Egypt from Bulgaria. Dissent among EIJ members to this change of direction and abandonment of the taking over Egypt as the group's primary goal was so strong that in the end, Zawahiri pledged to resign if the members failed to endorse his actions. The organization was in such disarray because of arrests and defections, and so close to bankruptcy, that the only choice was to follow Zawahiri or abandon al-Jihad. One of those who did abandon al-Jihad was Zawahiri's own brother Muhammad, the military commander of EIJ. With our curiosity piqued, let's embark on a dedicated exploration of merger with Al-Qaeda and its fascinating intricacies. In June 2001, Al-Qaeda and the Egyptian Islamic Jihad merged into an entity formerly called Jamaat al-Jihad, with the leadership of the EIJ having the majority 6 of 9 seats of Al-Qaeda's ruling council Shura. However, Sayyid Imam al-Sharif has claimed that only 9 people from the organization, including Zawahiri, actually joined Al-Qaeda. Consequently, it is often considered synonymous with Al-Qaeda, for example, by the US Treasury Department, although some refer to it as a separate organization with al-Zawahiri as its leader and global jihad's main ideologist. As we venture forward, let's examine activities in detail and gain a deeper appreciation for its significance. The organization specializes in armed attacks against high-level Egyptian government personnel, including cabinet ministers, and car bombings against the official US and Egyptian facilities. The original jihad was responsible for the attempted assassinations of Interior Minister Hassan al-Alfi in August 1993 and Prime Minister Afseki in November 1993. Egyptian Jihad and the rival armed group launched a wave of violence against Egypt's secular government in 1992, a campaign they only abandoned at the end of the decade. Nearly 1,300 people died in the unrest, including policemen and government officials. It is responsible for the Egyptian embassy bombing in Islamabad, Pakistan in 1995. In 1998, a planned attack against the US Embassy in Albania was thwarted by a roundup of suspects who are now called the returnees from Albania. In this section, we'll be exploring leadership. Although Ayman al-Zawahiri was the one in front, al-Sharif was the actual leader. Nabi Nazim was the leader of the group from 1988 until 1992. The al-Zawahiri factions subsequently formed an alliance with Al-Qaeda, leading over time to the effective merger of the two groups' operations inside Afghanistan. Even though al-Zawahiri was frequently referred to as a lieutenant or second-in-command of Al-Qaeda, this description is misleading, as it implies a hierarchical relationship. The modern Al-Qaeda organization is the combination of Bin Laden's financial resources with al-Zawahiri's ideological and operational leadership. In the next phase, we'll be immersing ourselves in the realm of external aid and exploring its real-world applications. The extent of its aid from outside of Egypt is not known. The Egyptian government claimed that both Iran and Osama Bin Laden support the Islamic Jihad. It also may attain some funding through various Islamic non-governmental organizations, cover businesses, and criminal acts. Unlike other militant counterparts, EIJ was noted for condemning only the government as apostate and seeking to recruit soldiers, reporters, and government workers who were untainted by Jahiliyyah. Iraq agreed in March 1993 to renew relations with the group. I hope you learned something new today. Let me know what you found most interesting in the comments below.